Yes, everybody, welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or of course, if you are watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel, even during the offseason, it's growing. THS staff writer Jacob Turner here alongside me on this one, as he always is, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, here for another episode of our off-season UNC football ISO series. Going to be focusing on Kevin Hester in this one. If you haven't seen the ones we've done already, after this video is done, of course, click on our YouTube channel. I think we've put out about 5 or 6 so far, and we're just getting started with this. I think it's 6 now. You know, we got a lot more of these we're going to be rolling out as well. So go check out those after this one's done. Before we dive into this one, though, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor on this one, Rogue Shop. Check them out, rogueshop.com. You guys have heard them if you're a consistent listener over here or a subscriber over here on Tar Heel Illustrated. They specialize in top shelf family grown hemp products, CBD, Delta 8, Delta 9, tinctures, oils, gummies, creams, candies, whatever you're into. They've got it. I use their products. My parents actually just ordered the cream. I know me and AJ have used that a lot. My fiance uses the cream a ton as well. Parents just got a big old jar of that delivered a couple of weeks ago, and they're loving it for some of their, aches and pains, for lack of a better word. So any age demographic out there, trust me, guys, there's a product on Rogue Shop for you. Real quickly, too, make sure you use that promo code TARHEELS10 to save on that so you can get a little bit of money off on that order. Again, check them out, rogueshop.com. Link is in the description below. All right, AJ, let's talk a little bit about Kevin Hester. I was looking forward to this podcast because I think Kevin Hester is a guy that, and we were talking a little bit off camera, I think he's a guy that's going to be an important player, an important factor on Carolina's defensive line next season. I think a lot of Carolina fans are really excited and interested to see how Gene Chizik, under his new defensive scheme, first year coming in, how, different in particular some of those hybrid players and just particularly the scheme is across the whole defense. And I think the defensive line, you'll see some changes down there as well. But just to focus on Hester before I kick it to you, appeared in 13 games last season as a reserve lineman for the Tar Heels, finished with 20 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, a forced fumble, a breakup, and 1 quarterback hurry. So obviously coming off the bench predominantly, but I think Hester's a guy who's going to see a little bit more of a predominant role in that rotation going in to this season as well. He's a guy that's been around the program for a few years now, too. I think he's a guy that some people might think he's a little bit younger than he actually is, but he's been around the program for a few years now, and I think that bodes well for him going into his junior season at Carolina. So, AJ, what are your thoughts on Hester and maybe hitting on that as well? Do you expect any kind of different role for him under Chizik and maybe how he's utilized different to, how we saw with Jay Bateman and whatnot?
More. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to play more. He was in the rotation last year. He played around 250 snaps. He was in the 20s for maybe half the games. He had 31 in the game at Pittsburgh, very competitive game that Carolina lost in overtime. And when the skies literally opened up, it was like a dam breaking above the stadium.
I wasn't there, but I remember that. Yeah,
that was unreal. So he played a lot in that game. And I'll tell you one thing, whenever the topic of the defensive line comes up, and some names are presented to Mac, but not all, no one ever solicits the name Kevin Hester, but Mac always mentions Kevin Hester. We had Coach Chizik back in April. He was asked about the defensive line. Kevin Hester's name jumps out. And I'll tell you, the thing that's intriguing about him is if you look at his trajectory, it's a guy who played 1 year in high school. He was a basketball player. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times dudes in basketball, people think, boy, he'd make a great football player, but they have a tough time adjusting to the physicality. And it has been a process for Kevin, but he has clearly gotten to the point now where he is full-on football player. He's a football player who used to play basketball.
Yeah.
But
athlete.
But Mac loves having basketball players on the offensive defensive line. They got several of them on the offensive line. And what does that mean? Even if you are not the most nimble and athletic basketball player, think about what that entails. You as a soccer player, Jacob, you can identify too. It's footwork. Absolutely. It's balance, it's coordination, it's body control, and all those kind of things. And man, when you could add that to someone who's got his size, someone who's got his first step quickness, someone who's got the kind of leverage he has, and he's a kind of player that could cause problems because of that reach. If he's rushing the passer and he's got a lineman in front of him, how often do you see linemen touch passes? It's usually while they're in engagement, but they can reach up and get it. He's a long kid. He could do that. And I think we're going to see an even more physical version of Kevin Hester this season. So absolutely, he's going to be in the rotation. And I still think there's a trajectory thing going on here. So what we've seen so far might just be the early stages of what we're going to see moving forward.
I was gonna ask you about that before we wrap this one up, because I keep these relatively short as we always do. But when you look at Hester, I'm glad you mentioned, not a guy that played a ton of football in high school, was a basketball player, a fantastic athlete, fantastic size, 6'3", and almost 6'4", 306 pounds. He's played well, and obviously kind of mostly off the bench in his few seasons in Chapel Hill. But when you look at, he's only into his third, fourth year playing football in general. You know what I mean? So when you look at him, I think he's a guy that a lot of people probably expect going into his junior year this year, going into his senior year. That's when I think a lot of people, and probably him himself and the coaching staff, you'd expect to see the best version of Kevin Hester because of just how young he is in the game. Is that something you kind of expect with him? Do you think you'll see
there's no doubt.
A more refined and a better Kevin Hester?
Well, it's like with anything, you have to be smart about it. So he wasn't going to step on the field and he wasn't going to be Julius Peppers out of the gate. He wasn't going to be anything like that. Here's what has always intrigued me about him. I guess his coach talked him into coming out, and he went out and where he's from, they had spring football. And after 3 spring football practices, he was getting offers. Think about that. He probably know how to put on the shoulder pads properly. Hey, you got to tie it through here and that kind of thing. And he's getting offers because he's so intriguing. He's a wonderful athlete, especially for a guy his size, playing his position. It just was a matter of time for him to become a full-on football player. I think he's there. So now the more reps he takes as a full-on football player, it is a continued part of his development, part of that we talk process all the time.
Yeah,
Kevin Hester has a process. It's a fascinating one. And he doesn't have to be the peak of whatever he'll be in college this coming year, because he has another year after that. So he still has time. And I think he's one of these kids that's going to need the whole college experience to become what he's going to become, because a lot of things are, I wouldn't say they're new, but I think his developmental rate is a steeper climb than other guys, but it's also a quicker climb because of where he's come from to where he is. He's passed by guys that were much higher rated. Yeah. He's passed by guys that were playing football when they were in 5th grade and have had a hand on the ground for 10 years. And he's passed a lot of these guys by. So I think it's going to be fun to watch his development. I believe that he's very patient with it himself. He's a smart kid. He understands the long term of this whole process. And the coaches have obviously done a terrific job articulating that to him. So I expect Kevin Hester to continue to get better this year and beyond. And there are some people that quietly will tell you that he has a chance to play at the next level. Because now he's sort of in that, okay, your whole getting used to football stuff is kind of over. Now the game really needs to take off. Yeah. Because a lot of times if a kid has the physical tools and is smart enough and everything else, it's going to be a fairly rapid pace from the blank canvas to this point. Now becomes the hard. It's like rebuilding a program. If you're terrible, you could get from terrible to at least competitive fairly quickly. The hardest step is going from competitive to championship contender. So from a football developmental standpoint, right now he wants to become championship contender type talent, type of player. So that might be a more challenging part of his growth, but it's there. The potential is there for him to be one of those guys that we look back and say, man, when that recruiting class was announced, nobody thought much about him. Oh, he's a project. But look at him. And he could be a big-time player. So I'm not sure he's a big-time player yet. I think at times he's really good, and at times he's still in that process. But the high end is very high for him, and the coaches will tell you that too. Absolutely.
He's definitely one of my guys to watch. I've got a kind of list in my head right now of guys I'm looking forward to kind of seeing, not only in the new scheme on defense, but just continuing to see how they develop. And he's definitely pretty high on that list in terms of what Kevin Hester can do for the Tar Heels next season. Good place to wrap this one up, though, AJ. It's been the Kevin Hester edition of our UNC off-season football ISO series. Again, if you haven't seen the videos we've already put out, go check it out on our YouTube channel. Just click below. You'll find them. I think we have a playlist for them as well. If you just click on the playlist tab, it'll take you right there. It should be a UNC football ISO series or just ISO series. I can't remember off the top of my head. I've been Jacob.
We have ISO videos. We have ISO videos of the guys doing stuff, and this is just ISO talk.
Yeah.
So on the front page of our site, the front page of the site, we call it Tar Heel Talk, just to show the difference. But yeah, these are ISO Talk series.
These are ISO Talk series. We do have a bunch of ISO videos from the spring game and going way back as well. So if you want to go check out some of those, go check them out. Some pretty good ISOs in there. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Quick shout out again to the Rogue Shop. Check them out. Promo code Tar Heels 10 to save at rogueshop.com. You guys know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. See it every single time we upload. See you all in the next one. Thanks.